long-term contracts. And so for us, predictability of policy is really, really critical, because that allows us in each of these jurisdictions to come up with what I would call a very customized and a fit-for-purpose solution in helping those economies develop. And so some of the work that we've taken on board, and particularly these emerging markets, I mean, we feel, David, in your opening remarks, you had talked briefly about, developing markets here. But I mean, markets like Vietnam, we have identified locations where we feel as, setting up an LNG import facility to meet the power needs of a region like Haiphong City in the north is of critical need, because what we did is we went through a very basic study around GDP development, GDP growth, industrial growth in the region. How can you best meet its need? And today we feel like there are policies in place to allow us to see the future for the next 10 to 15 years. And over that time horizon, we feel as establishing a gas to power facility with partners like JERA, as Soto-san was mentioning earlier, opens that new channel for LNG supply into that region, into that market to meet its needs, because its alternatives are coal. So again, I go back to predictable policies which promote investment, and for the policymakers to establish policies which are customized for their own economic development. I think that's really key to continuing to attract long-term investment in the energy space.
From that point of view of the developing economies, is LNG offering them a greater degree of flexibility than they might once have had, given the lack of need for pipelines to connect you from point A to point B, be the traditional model of the gas market? How do you feel that's well understood within Asia Pacific now, that the flexibility offered by LNG in terms of meeting fuel demand has risen in recent years?
You're asking any one of us to just chip in here, David?
I will. Let's go with you, Tafiq. Thank you.
Yeah, I think LNG players, oil and gas companies, will have to respond with flexibilities. We are, at the end of the day, in the competition of making sure our cost to serve and ability to serve customers remains better than the next guy. It may be in any tendering exercise, the next guy could be Artesa for me. The reality is we've got to give gas solutions which are attuned to the needs of the target geographies and the target jurisdictions. Where, as you mentioned, perhaps there is an aversion to large-scale infrastructure, we may need to start thinking about smaller scale solutions, ISO tanks, virtual pipeline systems. And this is what the industry will have to evolve into. In fact, Petronas has had to evolve into that space. As we've, in a market as flush as this one, we need to find new homes and new markets for the LNG that we produce. We are offering it now via bunkering services. We are entering to the VPS space. We are offering ISO tank solutions. Insofar as just sitting on your laurels and hoping that maybe a track record of 11,000 cargoes gets you across the line in establishing a market, that just won't do right now. I think, in fact, I think if anything,
dependence rate is about 90% on Middle East. In that sense, from the perspective of the energy security, LNG is one of the best energy source for us, and we believe that this is the same as other Asian countries.
Maybe, David, just to build on to the points that have been made is really around the fact that, you talked about flexibility. I think flexibility is offered both commercially, which is through the contractual arrangements, which, the LNG players have been offering. I also believe the technological advancements, particularly FSRU-based imports, that have really been championed in many countries. One has the ability to establish that footprint awfully quickly. Once you've done some of the initial sort of feed work and design, and you know exactly kind of where to put the terminal, you can kind of build a position an FSRU, make a onshore into a power plant or into some sort of an existing grid. And this can be done on a rather expedient manner within a matter of a couple of years in terms of construction cycle, versus the traditional LNG import facility, major tank construction, huge facilities, billions of dollars worth of investments. Those no longer are necessarily required. this is what I would say, I would classify this also as the industry offering the right level of flexibility, the right level of customization. And then you go beyond this, and Tawfiq sort of was addressing this already, which is small scale, virtual pipeline, bunkering solutions, where you have hub and spoke type solutions, particularly in the island nations, where you have the ability to have a much further reach. And this is something that the industry is focused on and continue to sort of build on, is offering gasification solutions into these island nations who are today dependent on sort of liquid fuels, and where gas can really be done in a scalable manner. Reliability is high, and it's a proven sort of a value chain that we've been in for decades.
Now, we're almost out of time. It's been a fantastic panel so far, but I want to come back to a point that was made right at the beginning, when Soda Sam was talking about the net zero 2050 targets. I'm keen to hear from the energy companies how it has changed in the last few years, how much time their plans are now dedicated to thinking about how the hydrocarbons they're used to developing can fit within that new system compared to, say, 5 or so years ago, before any major economy had a net zero target. How has that changed your thinking, Tawfiq? I'll come to you first, just to get that sense of how the energy system is transforming.
David, maybe a very timely and a very topical subject for us. We've just declared our net zero carbon emissions aspiration by 2050. This is not riding on a trend or just joining the wagon. I think we've had to learn in very quick order that the customers, the stakeholders, the ecosystem that we work within, the markets we serve, are all aligned to working towards such aspirations. Not least of all, Japan is a great example. It is also a natural transition to move towards, because we've recently also revised our statement of purpose. You'll notice, curiously, the words oil and gas are missing from the next statement. We now, at Petronas, want to be a progressive energy and solutions provider, enriching lives for a sustainable future. And I'm quoting word for word there. And you'll notice that energy as a total solution is the space that we're going to try and aspire to be more prominent player and a key competitor and leader within the region. The statement, however, does not deny that hydrocarbons will continue to play a core role. We do believe in the hypothesis that lower carbon emissions through LNG offer a great transition solution. We don't believe that there is one pathway to a net zero solution across jurisdictions in Asia. There are many pathways. Of course, at different rates of policy switching, we'll want to partner these jurisdictions. But together with this is also an increasing realization. Not only do we have to be a lot more cost effective, but we've got to be keeping pace with the technological advancements that keep not only unit production costs down in a $40 per barrel scenario, it also keeps carbon emissions in check and in control. We've declared commitments and targets by 2024, how much we'll cap our GHG emissions, but we'll need to keep the effort going. And this will be a journey that our board will endorse from time to time, but there's a long-term aspiration to get to net zero. So not trying to be trendy, but facing the realities of a market and a customer base and a regulatory space that increasingly demands this of us. So it's a response that not necessarily all oil and gas players will take at the same pace.
Caesar, the same question to you, sir.
Sure. Look, since 2000, ExxonMobil has invested more than $10 billion in reducing our own energy footprint or carbon emission footprint from our own facilities. And we have partnered with 80 different universities in continuing to do research on emerging energy technologies. Our focus is in scalable solutions. We didn't talk about algae today, but we feel that the algae clean biofuel has the recipe to be scaled up and be part of the existing sort of energy mix. It consumes carbon. It does not compete with any of the food crops like other sort of biofuel sources, And it thrives in swamps, which means it doesn't require any of the fresh water, and it can grow essentially all year round. And this is an area that we have been doing extensive research on and continuing to perfect. Similarly, carbonate fuel cell technology, roundabout we talked about, CCS earlier, this is another area that we have a significant focus on, where we feel that, that some of the large-scale sort of application globally through these scalable solutions has to be part of the overall energy, sustainable energy going forward. So that's where our focus is. And so although we haven't announced anything specifically, but we have been spending money in this space for more than 20 years.
And I'll finish by coming to Soda-san. How confident are you, Soda-san, that Japan and other countries within Asia Pacific will be able to meet the net zero targets by 2050, whatever mix of fuels or policies they need to pursue?
Yeah, as to Japan, although individual policies will be discussed in the future, but we would like to create a virtuous cycle between economy and environment by utilizing all policy measures, including financial support for research and development and deregulation in order to promote innovation and to drive green industries all over the world. However, as I mentioned before, the Asian countries have not the same goal. They should have their own traditional energy transition plan. In that sense, we really want to support such kind of the actual and individuals and the realistic energy transitions of these Asian countries, which is in line with their situation. That is our view.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for a wide-ranging and fascinating discussion about the future of energy in Asia Pacific. I found it very enlightening, and I'm sure our audience at home has too. Thank you very much all for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. David Shepherd, and thank you to all the members of our distinguished panel. Ladies and gentlemen, we have APEC leaders coming up in the next sessions who you do not want to miss. We'll see you back soon.
Today, faster than ever, the world is changing because opportunity is raging. Mixed reality, changing the world we see. Intelligence to build it like we always hoped it would be. But it's not really about what technology can do. It's about how it's used by you. In the end, it's just a tool, so bring it. What's a hammer without a person to swing it? Your possibility is endless, your limits are few. So here's the real question. What will you do?
Trade is the lifeblood of the global economy, and we are here to help. From consumer products to critical medical and relief supplies, our over 500,000 team members move more than 16 million packages a day to 220 countries and territories around the world. Breaking down trade barriers helps our customers reach new markets, which translates into job opportunities. At FedEx, trade is our business.
It's here, fun and joy, endless cheer. The memory so dear, after years, still so clear. Journey into this and more. Come on over and explore a different world. You surely say nothing more one can ask for. Just treat your senses, experiences, no pretenses. Every step is something new, perfect to refresh you. Live your favorite memory. Malaysia stays in memory. Keep your favorite memory. Malaysia, land of memory. Malaysia, truly Asia.
It's great to see Petronas setting up projects in which they can have real impact to the environment.
Petronas has been on its sustainability journey for more than 2 decades.
Petronas fleet technology solution exists to
to address the APEC CEOs Summit. Indeed, an even greater privilege to introduce Prime Minister Suga of Japan for his keynote address. It is not lost on any of us the difficult and challenging times that we live in, the impact that this global health challenge has had on the global economy. These things have never been more closely connected. The pursuit of population health management, what happens when it's disrupted, what the opportunity is when it's done right, are right at the leading edge of the thinking going forward. We at Sanofi have worked tirelessly since the very beginning of this pandemic. Over 10,000 people in our company dedicated to the discovery, development and manufacture of vaccines. 2 COVID-19 candidates brought forward, and we hope somewhere close to 1 billion doses made available by the end of 2021. We believe not just us, but all of our peers across the industry and everybody in healthcare needs to play a part in creating a solution to get ourselves back to normal. At the same time, this link between the economy and between population health management has never been more accessible through the digitization of healthcare. Whether it's virtual, whether it's data collection, whether it's care management and delivery, wherever we look, there is an opportunity to benefit from the use of data and digital techniques. It shouldn't start and stop with artificial intelligence in research, development and discovery. It needs to go beyond that to help manage chronic diseases and improve mortality and morbidity. And we can realize these goals. It is also clear that Prime Minister Suga has laid out with his cabinet a bold plan to digitize Japan. There is a huge opportunity there. Having lived and worked in Japan, I understand when the Japanese population step forward and want to really take a lead, they know how to do it. I'm excited by what may happen next. Electronic patient record, for example, helping identify rare and chronic diseases, or an ability to demonstrate a health economic benefit across a broad population, to help access healthcare in remote parts of the country. I think there are tremendous opportunities. I look forward to the rest of the conference, and I hand over to Prime Minister Suga.
ムヒデン首相、ルーベン議長、ご出席の皆様、本日は皆様にお話ができる機会をいただき、誠にありがとうございます。これまで私は官房長官として、日本経済が低迷する中、金融緩和、財政出動、成長戦略を進めることで、雇用を約400万人増やし、観光や農産品輸出を大きく伸ばしてまいりました。昨年は地方の地価も27年ぶりに上昇しました。 これからも総理としてポストコロナに向かって行政の縦割り、既得権益、悪しき前例主義を打破し、大胆な規制改革を進めて新しい社会を作ります。私の政権の優先課題はデジタル化の推進とグリーン社会の実現です。新型コロナにより人々の行動様式が変わる中、デジタル化の加速が重要です。その司令塔としてデジタル庁を設立します。民間活力を利用するべく、デジタル化を阻む規制は抜本的に見直し、早急に取り組んでいきます。グリーン社会の実現に向けて、日本は2050年までに温室効果ガスの排出を実質ゼロにする脱炭素社会の実現を目指します。革新的なイノベーションやエネルギー強靭性の向上を通じ、経済と環境の好循環を作り出していきます。コロナ禍で明らかになったのはサプライチェーンの脆弱さです。日本企業の海外生産拠点の多元化推進、デジタル技術の活用、質の高いインフラの普及、実践によりサプライチェーンの強靭化を進めます。経済の再生には国際的な人の往来の再開も不可欠です。日本は貿易措置をしっかり講じながらグローバルな経済活動を再開していきます。また海外の金融人材を受け入れ、アジア、さらには世界の国際金融センターを目指します。世界経済の低迷により、内向き志向が強まりかねない中で、自由で公正な国際経済のルール作りが重要です。日本は信頼性のある自由なデータ流通の考えのもと、共同議長国を務める WTO 電子商取引交渉をはじめ、デジタル貿易に関する国際ルール作りを主導していきます。WTO 改革を引き続き推進するとともに、RCEP の協定の早期締結や来年の議長国として TPP11 の着実な実施や拡大により、アジア太平洋自由貿易圏の実現を目指します。APEC はアジア太平洋地域において国際的なルールに従い、貿易、投資の自由化と連結性の強化を推進する重要な枠組みです。APEC の強みは、APEC ビジネスを諮問委員会を要することです。先日、委員の皆さんから提言を受け取り、デジタル化とイノベーションの活用が、この地域の経済的繁栄の鍵になるとの認識を強くしました。APEC では、ボゴール目標に代わる今後20年の発展に向けたビジョンを議論しています。このビジョンの策定の議論に APEC ビジネス諮問委員会や有識者の皆様から多大な貢献をいただいていることに改めて感謝いたします。日本は APEC とともに全ての人々が活躍し、成長を実感し、あらゆる危機に対し、強靭で持続可能な経済社会の実現を目指します。こうした地域の繁栄の礎となるのが自由で開かれたインド太平洋であり、その実現にリーダーシップを発揮したいと考えます。今後も経済界の皆さんとの連携をより一層深めながら、APEC における取り組みに積極的に貢献していきます。ご清聴ありがとうございました。
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in giving a round of applause for His Excellency Prime Minister Suga. Our appreciation as well to Mr. Hudson for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you will stay and join us for our final session of the APEC CEO Dialogues 2020 in just a short while.
It's great to see Petronas setting up projects in which they can have real impact to the environment.
Petronas has been on its sustainability journey for more than 2 decades.
Petronas Fleet Technology Solution exists to create and deliver sustainable solutions for mobility. Our target is to provide fuel, lubricants, and thermal fluid that are more efficient to lower the carbon footprint of our products.
Today, faster than ever, the world is changing because opportunity is raging. Mixed reality, changing the world we see. Intelligence to build it like we always hoped it would be. But it's not really about what technology can do. It's about how it's used by you. In the end, it's just a tool, so bring it. What's a hammer without a person to swing it? Your possibility is endless, your limits are few. So here's the real question. What will you do?
Trade is the lifeblood of the global economy, and we are here to help. From consumer products to critical medical and relief supplies, our over 500,000 team members move more than 16 million packages a day to 220 countries and territories around the world. Breaking down trade barriers helps our customers reach new markets, which translates into job opportunities. At FedEx, trade is our business.
Search no more, it's here, fun and joy, endless cheer. The memory so dear, after years, still so clear. Journey into this and more, come on over and explore. A different world, you surely say, nothing more one can ask for. Just treat your senses, experiences, no pretenses. Every step is something new, perfect to refresh you. Live your favorite memory. Malaysia stays in memory. Keep your favorite memory. Malaysia, land of memory. Malaysia, truly Asia.
It's great to see Petronas setting up projects in which they can have real impact to the environment.
Petronas has been on its sustainability journey for more than 2 decades.
Petronas Fleet Technology Solution exists to create and deliver sustainable solutions for mobility. Our target is to provide fuel, lubricants, and thermal fluid that are more efficient to lower the carbon footprint of our products.
faster than ever the world is changing because opportunity is raging. Mixed reality we see, intelligence to build it like we always hoped it would be. But it's not really about what technology can do. It's about how it's used by you. In the end, it's just a tool, so bring it. What's a hammer without a person to swing it? Your possibility is endless, your limits are few. So here's the real question. What will you do?
Trade is the lifeblood of the global economy, and we are here to help. From consumer products to critical medical and relief supplies, our over 500,000 team members move more than 16 million packages a day to 220 countries and territories around the world. Breaking down trade barriers helps our customers reach new markets, which translates into job opportunities. At FedEx, trade is our business.
Search no more, it's here, fun and joy, endless cheer. The memory so dear, after years, still so clear. Journey into this and more, come on over and explore a different world. You surely say, nothing more one can ask for. Just treat your senses, experiences, no pretenses. Every step is something new, perfect to refresh you. Live your favorite memory. Malaysia stays in memory. Keep your favorite memory. Malaysia, land of memory. Malaysia, truly Asia.
It's great to see Petronas setting up projects in which they can have real impact to the environment.
Petronas has been on its sustainability journey for more than 2 decades.
Petronas Fleet Technology Solution exists to create and deliver sustainable solutions for mobility. Our target is to provide fuel, lubricants and thermal fluid that are more efficient to lower the carbon footprint of our products.
Today, faster than ever, the world is changing because opportunity is raging. Mixed reality, changing the world we see. Intelligence to build it like we all hoped it would be.
In a world where politics is increasingly partisan and common ground elusive, there are, from time to time, rare voices that cut through the noise and discord in speaking to our common humanity. One such voice in recent years is that of Jacinda Ardern, the 40th Prime Minister of New Zealand. Prime Minister in 2017 at the age of 37 years old, she has become a compelling voice for a new kind of leadership that is empathetic, compassionate, courageous, and resolute. We saw these qualities in the aftermath of the Christchurch shootings in March 2019, when she reached out to a traumatized community with empathy and compassion while denouncing terrorism and navigating stringent gun control legislation. We saw these qualities again in New Zealand's effective response to COVID-19, which her government communicated with empathy and implemented with great decisiveness. In New Zealand's general elections last month, her country responded to her leadership with a landslide victory and outright majority. It is my pleasure and privilege to present Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand, in conversation with Brad Smith, President of Microsoft, on APEC Reimagined. Thank you. Terima kasih. Kia ora.
Hello, everybody. I'm delighted to be with you. I'm coming to you from one part of the Pacific region. Here I am at Microsoft's headquarters in Seattle, Washington. And I'm not just delighted, I'm honored to be joined virtually with one of the world's great leaders coming from another part of the Pacific region, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. Prime Minister, I think I should first say congratulations to you on an election, but perhaps more importantly to you and 5 million New Zealanders. I think you all have been a beacon of hope in a year that clearly has needed one, as you've shown us how we can manage more successfully through this pandemic. I have some questions that I'll put to you that we can talk about, but before I do that, let me turn it over to you so you can share some opening thoughts.
Kia ora, and thank you, Brad. Tēnā koutou katoa ngā mihi nui kia koutou, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'd like to begin, though, by acknowledging Dato Rohana for her investment in APEC since 2015 and for her leadership as its chair during this challenging year. Now, more than ever, it is critical that APEC's voice within APEC remains strong as business and governments around the region collaborate to support economic recovery. It is especially nice to share a platform with you, Brad, as a friend of New Zealand and collaborator on both the Christchurch core and Microsoft's major investments here in New Zealand as well. And we can't ignore the virtual circumstances that we are meeting in today due to COVID-19. It is unquestionably tough as we see infection raging in different parts of the world, including in the APEC region. Some APEC economies have had more success against the virus. New Zealand has benefited from some unique advantages that have enabled us to virtually eliminate it. And yet it has come at cost. Indeed, no economy will be spared the ongoing effects of the global pandemic. The world economy is projected to shrink by 4.5% this year, barely recovering to 2019 levels next year. For the first time in decades, we are seeing major setbacks in the fight against poverty, with 90 million people worldwide projected to fall below the poverty line. In these circumstances, when we meet later tonight, all APEC leaders will be focused on having a plan for two things. First, the health response to the pandemic. Getting the virus under control is critical to allowing economies to reopen. And second, driving the economic recovery and building back better. Choices now about how to recover from the crisis will be critical to our well-being in the decades to come. It's the second part that I want to focus on my remarks, particularly today, because we see growing together in APEC as a virtual part of that plan. While I don't want to preempt the outcome of our meeting later tonight, I hope APEC leaders will agree a new vision for the Asia Pacific to guide our work for the next 20 years, focusing on three engines of economic growth: trade, digital, innovation, sustainability and inclusion. Trade has been the engine of growth and prosperity in APEC since it was founded 30 years ago. And as we confront the generation's biggest economic challenge, we must not repeat the mistakes of history by retreating into protectionism. APEC must continue to commit to keeping markets open and trade flowing. We are doing practical things that show that determination. Building on CPTPP, last week we signed RCEP, a single rulebook covering 15 markets. We must continue to ensure a level playing field on predictable rules for our exporters in the region, but also internationally. As economies that successfully embrace digital technology and innovation will be those that succeed in the 21st century. All our economies need to make the right choices to ensure all our people can connect, that they have the right skills to succeed in the digital world, and that we have the right frameworks in place to support trade and competition. As we look to build back better from COVID, this is a huge area of focus for New Zealand. This year, for instance, we created a digital economy partnership agreement with Chile and Singapore to help our exporters and SMEs take advantage of opportunities from digital, committed to making New Zealand a truly digital nation. If APEC economies are to continue to grow in the long term, we must ensure growth is sustainable and inclusive. As we look to build back better from the COVID crisis, most of us around the region are making the choice to invest in infrastructure that will both grow jobs but also put us on track for decarbonisation. In New Zealand, that is about the transition towards 100% renewable electricity and the choices that will move our transport fleet towards clean energy sources like hydrogen and biofuels. And on the trade front, we are engaged in negotiations towards an agreement on climate change, trade and sustainability. This world-leading initiative aims to address a range of trade-related issues that have the potential to contribute meaningfully to addressing climate change and other serious environmental issues. We also know the pandemic is having a disproportionate impact on women, Indigenous people, ethnic minorities. So we're focusing on ensuring our recovery is inclusive by getting those people back into work quickly. And not just any work, but decent, meaningful work. New Zealand takes on the chair of APEC next year, and we will be asking three things of APEC economies: to join together to reignite growth and plan for a long-lasting economic recovery, to work together to show leadership and innovation, to work for the collective good, and to grow together, to foster prosperity and well-being that is sustainable, inclusive and digitally enabled. These are challenging times, but these times also offer a significant opportunity to do things differently, APEC included. Thank you very much, and I look forward to welcoming you in APEC events in 2021, including next year's CEO Dialog as we take on the chair. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Well, great. Thank you so much. I think that really framed so well, a variety of issues for the future. And I want to ask you about a few of them. But as we embark on that, I thought I might start with one of the lessons from last year, 2019. It may seem like a decade ago, but it was only a year and a half ago, that you had to address and the world watched and supported, I think, as you addressed the aftermath of the terrible terrorist attack and the tragedy in Christchurch. To me, one of the things that was so striking was how you used that as a moment to bring the world together and actually take action. You led the way towards the Christchurch call. You partnered with President Macron, other world leaders, and you galvanized the largest tech companies to take action, not just in New Zealand, but literally globally. As you look back at that, are there some lessons that you think are applicable for the Asia-Pacific countries more broadly in terms of the future of, say, multi-stakeholder action?
Yeah, I do. You know, when I reflect on that time, it was within the terrible tragedy itself, and within the tool there that was used by the terrorists in that case. The thing that caused that issue for us in terms of the ability to disseminate so widely an absolutely atrocious, appalling, dehumanizing video, the inability to do that, within it also lied the solution. The fact that that could be disseminated was because we are increasingly borderless. Our social media platforms enable us to be so interconnected, and yet our way of dealing with issues when that went horribly wrong was very siloed. We needed to take that same borderless approach and collaborative approach in order to address the problem itself. So that's why for us, regulation was never going to solve our problems. We needed to be able to mobilize very, very quickly in a dynamic way, and not as government, but as NGOs and as tech companies, for a common solution. None of us thought that kind of activity online was acceptable. It was against all of our values, no matter where we were in the world, whether we were private sector or whether we were public sector. So that's why collaboration was so important and continues to be.
Yeah, I think this theme of ideas spreading across borders, threats spreading across borders, in part driven by technology that crosses borders, is part of what really is defining not just the future of APEC, but the future of the world for the decade ahead. You noted that obviously COVID, a virus, respects no border, and even in a country like yours that has been so much more successful in managing it, an economic toll. As you think about the future in the economy, what do you see as the principal drivers of a broader economic recovery in the Asia-Pacific region, and what role would you like New Zealand to play as the APEC chair in advancing those drivers in the year ahead?
Yeah, and a couple of things that we've learned along the way, and we won't be alone in this. There's been no cost-free response. But in terms of the innovation we have seen and the agility of particularly our businesses and small businesses, some surveys and reports have estimated that within a period of lockdown that we had in New Zealand, which was several weeks, we saw the equivalent of 5 years worth of digital transformation in that short period of time. The impact of that towards our economy, to productivity, will be of measurable benefit coming through the other side of COVID. So we want to find ways to continue to support with less pain that kind of digital transformation. And I believe other APEC economies will be in the same place. But we're also committed to making sure that as we rebuild our economy, we do it in such a way that we focus on those who have been most harshly affected. We're not the only place who are seeing a disproportionate impact on our Indigenous Māori people in New Zealand, on Pacific Island members of the New Zealand community, and also women. And so our recovery needs to focus very heavily on ensuring that we are focused on skills and trade training and job creation that equally addresses those hardest hit areas.
It's, I think, so striking because, here we are beginning this decade talking about COVID and the work to recover economically from it. But I still think it's fair to say that this is a decade as a whole that will probably be defined by climate issues. It may be a century that is defined by climate issues more than anything else. And of course, carbon is something else that doesn't respect borders. It spreads around the world in the atmosphere. You've been a leader in advocating for more progress in this area. What do you see as the key domestic and international steps that you would like to see taken? And where do you see the business community fitting in? Where can those of us who work in business best contribute to the kinds of steps you think are needed?
And that collective responsibility, that response from the international community is critical. Now, here we are, the other side of the world, the bottom of the world, as some may describe it, we may point to the centre, less than 1% of contributing to less than 1% of global emissions. And yet, if we collectively, as an international community, do not address climate change, it is our region that will see immeasurable consequences in terms of sea level rises. In some parts of the Pacific, this is not a hypothetical, they are already seeing their lives, their homes threatened. And so it does require that collective responsibility. Our view is that we need to have our own house in order. So we've worked very hard to try and model our expectations. We've set in our own domestic legislation an expectation of warming no greater than 1.5 degrees. We have zero carbon legislation and an independent body that will assist the government to set carbon budgets in order to reach our goals. But by getting our own house in order, that enables us then to go out into the business community and say, join us. Yes, many legislative tools create trading systems that incentivise a response to climate change. But I think there can be no greater incentive than just basic values of humanity. And working in partnership, where we say we can actually make sure we pull the levers we have as government, but we need the innovation within the private sector. We need the collaboration. That will make all the difference too.
I'm struck because there's one similarity that I see, at least, between the COVID issues and the climate issues. They're both obviously really grounded in science. Yeah. They involve a lot of data. They involve conversations about phrases and numbers that people might not have been familiar with, whether it's an infection rate or, as you just put it, 1.5 degrees and why that matters. You've just gone through, obviously, a successful election that has involved a dialogue with 5 million people. What have you found is the key to talking with a broader community about these kinds of what are fundamentally scientific and data-driven issues?
Well, I think it's a great question, but even the most complex of issues can so often be distilled down into simple principles, no matter what it is. I will always remember, Brad, between my grandmother and my father many years ago before she passed away, and she was a climate skeptic, not a believer in the science or the arguments around it, and she was expressing that view to my father. And I remember him saying, "Well, Mother, I may not understand the science of it, but I know what I saw when I was in the Pacific. Chiefs there showed me where they played in the water when they were young, and they showed me where the water is now, and you can't deny what you see." Simple messages about the reality. And we in this part of the world have those messages and stories on our doorstep. So I think we well understand the consequence. What we need to do is express a optimistic path for the future. I think it's easy to lose hope, particularly when the task feels so enormous. But breaking it down into things that we can do as a country, things that we can do as a government, things we could do as business, and things we can do as individuals. Small choices around the type of public transport you take, choices around what you do with your waste. It all contributes, but it also gives a sense of hope that you can make a difference.
Obviously, in the world today, these conversations really require the use of new media. We may have grown up, at least starting in an era of television, but we live in an internet age. In order to reach people, we often have to reach people through new technology. And yet we also live in a world where this new technology is not equally available to everyone. How do you think about what it will take to close the digital divide? What does it mean, for you with the people of New Zealand? What do you think it means that we should be talking about and thinking about more broadly in all the Asia-Pacific countries?
I think we need to start turning the discussion around access to technology as in the same way that we do some of those other very, very basic tools to participate in society. And when we start thinking about it that way, we change what we do as governments. Someone described it very simply recently. They said, "I don't want any family to have to decide between bread or broadband." Previously, something that we may have considered to be a luxury item increasingly is the difference between participation in community and society, accessing critical information in times of crisis or need, and accessing education. COVID-19, I think, has sped up our thinking in that space, because previously someone might say, well, it's a luxury whether or not you choose or you have the ability to access Netflix, but they would never argue whether it was a luxury to access your school homework or work program online, and yet that's increasingly where our education is moving. And so during COVID, we worked very hard to distribute, some of the hardware required to people to move to online learning. And I think that has again accelerated a fundamental shift that we need, no matter where you live, rural, urban, whether you're young or old, in order to make sure that no one is isolated or disengaged or left behind.
One of the things that has been really striking to me about this whole issue that you just described is obviously it starts with access to devices, to connectivity, but also people need skills. And as we've looked around the world, one of the things we've noted is there was a 20-year period from 1980 to the year 2000 where businesses, employers across the board, steadily invested more in the training of their employees. And then we got to about the year 2000, and I think everybody concluded that they didn't have to train people on how to use a PC or a word processing program or email, and you could watch a YouTube video instead. And so we've had 2 decades now of declining and then stagnating investments in skilling of people. As we think about the decade ahead, what's your perspective on what it's going to require governments and what it's going to call on others to do to sort of invest in the skilling of almost all of us?
Well, actually, this is something that we broadly have been talking about for a while as a nation, in part because we've had quite a pronounced issue with productivity in New Zealand. So that naturally means that it lends itself to to constantly train and support our workforce. Where we've moved towards is just a view that actually there should be no such thing as, a point that education ends, that we need to design systems that support lifelong learning. And I always view it as similar to a conveyor belt where we jump on and we jump off at different times in our lives to upskill and retrain, and create an expectation for our younger people that is going to be the future for them, particularly with such a changeable working environment for people and, as you point out, such rapid transformation in terms of digital skills and needs. We've identified that one of the barriers, though, to learning, in a workplace is whether or not you have a permissive environment where they encourage it. And so we've had things like pledges that businesses could sign up to around increasing their budget around upskilling and training their existing workforce. We as government have looked to try and increase particularly the budgets of retraining for those departments who, for instance, have areas that might be challenged in the future, large dependency on call centres, for instance, to make sure that we are supporting a workforce that may need to transition in the future. And finally, by removing the expense of training, we recently announced that apprenticeships, for instance, are now free in New Zealand and some vocational training and education. That's an area where we needed a larger workforce, so we wanted to remove the financial barrier. As a result, we've had a doubling in the number of apprenticeships we now have in New Zealand. So as soon as we remove those financial barriers, we do see people taking up those opportunities.
Yeah, one of the things that I've really appreciated is I've had the opportunity to spend more time with you, your team, people in New Zealand, is that innovation that you described. And one of the things I've come away with is the sense that if we look at the globe the way we typically do, water and land, New Zealand is an island, or 2 islands to be more precise. But if we look at the planet a different way and look at the flow of ideas, I would say New Zealand is not an island but a bridge. You're so often a bridge of ideas that move across the Pacific between different cultures. You're so grounded, I think, in this enormous appreciation of different heritages. It's reflected every time you open an event with your comments. And I can't help but put that in the context of APEC and ABAC and the role that you will be playing. I guess my first question is, when you think about the world of public diplomacy, it's gone virtual. You participated in the UNGA this week or this year, virtually instead of in New York. Where would you like to see public diplomacy, take these conversations about the ideas of the world in the year ahead?
Well, I'd be the first to admit that I think New Zealand and New Zealanders probably find the virtual nature of our engagements challenging, because a value that's really fundamental to who we are is the idea of manaakitanga, which is the concept of really playing host and welcoming people and showing that hospitality. And that's one of the things that we had been so looking forward to with APEC. However, one of our other values is that we are a very inclusive and egalitarian society. So, one of the opportunities that moving diplomacy into these virtual environments brings is the ability to involve and engage wider participation in events and platforms. And so we'll be really looking to build that inclusivity, to bringing in wider groups to conversation, and to not lose the spirit or intent of that diplomacy just because we're in a virtual space. So that'll be a challenge for us, but it's one that we're up for.
So for all of us who are listening, watching, participating, as you said, there'll be meetings this evening. And this is part of what is obviously an important annual dialogue conversation. As this chair transitions to you, is there a message you want to share with I'll call it the APEC community? What should we take away from this, take to heart, and really focus on for the year ahead?
I'd say, Brad, that we are incredibly aware that APEC economies, through our year of hosting, are rightly focused on the response to COVID-19, not just the health response, but the economic response. We believe as chairs that we are well placed to do exactly what you've described, to be a bridge. We'd call it te arawhiti, to be the bridge between nations of APEC as we work on some of the solutions that will be fundamental to all of us. And I've mentioned some of them today: digital technology, trade, making sure that we keep those supply lines open and that our recovery is inclusive and sustainable. We will be putting that all at the centre of our role as chair. And we believe as a region, we can come out stronger in our recovery if we focus on those elements over the next 12 months.
Well, I just want to say in closing, for a company like Microsoft, APEC has long been such an important forum. It brings such a large part of the world together. But I think one of the things we've always appreciated is it has made room for voices from many different cultures, many different countries, but also, frankly, for those of us who are in the business community, so that we can connect, we can be supportive, we can understand what's expected of us, and hopefully meet that challenge by raising our own ambition. So I want to thank you. I think you've given us an opportunity, almost through the inspiration that comes from the examples that you've set, to aim higher regardless of where we live, and aim to achieve more. I think we all not just hope, but even now perhaps expect 2021 is going to be a better year than 2020 for the world. I think that's our goal going in. So thank you for the opportunity to be here today. If there's any last thoughts you want to leave us with, I want to give you the opportunity.
No, my last comment would simply be to say thank you for the opportunity to thank everyone who's participated in ABAC and worked so incredibly hard in those forums, and that we look forward to virtually welcoming everyone to APEC 2021 and to say, Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa.
Prime Minister Ardern, thank you. Thank you to everyone for watching.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a resounding round of applause for Her Excellency Prime Minister Ardern and Brad Smith. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the first ever 24-hour virtual meeting of the APEC CEO Dialogues, and I hope you found the discussions to be insightful, stimulating, and rich in ideas and lessons to help you make a difference in your own economies, industries, and roles. It has been an extremely memorable experience for me, 25 actually, not 24 hours, and I'm grateful for this opportunity to be part of this prestigious program. As we conclude what has been a historic event, may I now invite Dr. Ruben Yanalingam, APEC CEO Dialogues 2020 Chair, to deliver his closing remarks, and thereafter hand over to Barbara Chapman, the Chair of the APEC CEO Summit 2021 New Zealand, to extend their invitation to next year's gathering.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an amazing couple of days, and we've reached the end of our program. Thank you all for being a part of history via the first virtual APEC CEO Dialogues, the most sustainable APEC event to date. I would like to thank the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Malaysia, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, APEC economy leaders, business and thought leaders, as well as moderators for the wonderful dialogue sessions we've had. A very big thank you as well to our partners, sponsors, and media. Last but not least, I would like to thank the organizing committee and event organizers for all their hard work. A special thanks to the ABAC Chair of 2020, Dr. Rohana Mahmud, who worked tirelessly to make this event a reality. If there were any glitches or shortcomings of any kind, I humbly apologize and hope you will forgive us. I hope we've set a benchmark for the future, and I'm sure it can only get better. In Malaysia, we like to say terima kasih to convey our thanks. It literally means please receive our affections. We hope you've had a great time at the APEC CEO Dialogues 2020. Terima kasih to all of you for being a part of this amazing event. On that note, I would now like to hand over to Barbara Chapman, Chair of next year's APEC CEO Dialogues. Over to you, New Zealand.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Ruben. I'm Barbara Chapman, and I am delighted to receive the virtual gavel and to take the chair as we look forward to and plan for the virtual APEC Zealand in November 2021. On behalf of my colleagues, may I congratulate you on the delivery of the APEC CEO Dialogues 2020 in such complicated circumstances in this year that has made us all look at the world through different eyes. The APEC CEO Summit is our unique opportunity to lead the business dialogue in the APEC region. APEC leaders, globally respected entrepreneurs, and CEOs and the thought leaders of our time. APEC New Zealand has adopted a Maori proverb, Haumie, Huie, Taikie, which means join, work, grow, together. This idea is as valid for our businesses as it is for our governments. For the many businesses united by the Pacific Ocean, there has never been a more important time to join together. APEC is the most dynamic region in the world's economy, home to 38% of the world's population and 47% of global GDP. Working together will help us rebuild and recover. There is no escaping that our COVID-19 response will dominate 2021, but growth will come from progress in many areas. Sustainability, ensuring widespread adoption of digital tools to drive productivity, and creating inclusive plans. Looking back to the business discourse pre-COVID, there was mounting unrest about the moral case for business. Trust in big corporations was weakening as a sceptical public challenged what the purpose and impact of a corporation should be in this era. What is our role in income equality? What is our role in sustainability and the environment? How do we impact climate change? And how do we improve diversity, inclusion, and create the skills our workforces will require in the future? These are challenges we all face as we work to partner with government and society to improve the state of the world as well as our bottom lines. The threshold has moved substantially in what people expect from business, and our New Zealand CEO Summit will create the opportunity for us to discuss our role in the moral case for business. I will leave you now with a video that will give you a little taste of New Zealand and New Zealanders. So join us virtually in November 2021. Work with us. Let's share our understanding to face the challenges ahead. Grow with us by setting a plan for a long-lasting recovery for the entire region. Humie, huie, taikie. Join, work, grow together.
Kia ora. I'm Jaden from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Kia ora is a Māori word for saying hello, down here in the economy that is lucky enough to be hosting APEC 2021. Just not, actually down here. Kia ora means more than hello. It means welcome as a friend, and it also means thank you. And it is with sincere thanks that we acknowledge the way that our friends in Malaysia have stepped up to meet the challenges faced under COVID-19 and kept APEC going virtually this year during the global pandemic. Great job, everyone. Like you, we were ready to welcome everyone to our homes, to give representatives of all 21 APEC economies a taste of who